On today's episode of the Cryptoverse, Roger Ver goes a little bit too far by appearing on CNBC and saying a few things that are, shall we say, controversial. All of that coming up on today's episode of the Cryptoverse, so stay right there. Hi there guys, welcome to the latest episode of the Cryptoverse, your regular dose of news and commentary on Bitcoin, cryptocurrencies and blockchains. I'm your host, Chris Coney. So Roger Ver goes too far. He appeared on CNBC, I think it was yesterday. This is the video clip I'm playing right in front of you here, so feel free to go and watch the whole thing. It's about 8 minutes 45 seconds in total. There's so much in here that I could talk about, but I've picked out one specific concept to talk about today. At 1 minute 30, the CNBC reporter, this lady, she asks, quote, "Is there not a world, Roger, where both Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash can exist? Question mark, close quote." To which he replies by saying, basically he says it's really dangerous for Bitcoin core holders right now on the basis that if in a short space of time, the Bitcoin Cash price goes up significantly, and that causes a lot of mining power to switch from Bitcoin to Bitcoin Cash, the Bitcoin network, he says, would come to a, quote, screeching halt. He then says in the 7 years that he's been involved in Bitcoin, he has always encouraged people to hold their Bitcoin in a wallet that you control the private keys to. However, right now he says, it might be a good idea to move all of your Bitcoin and hold it on an exchange in case there is a sudden panic sell. He says, if your coins are in a private wallet and you can't transfer them to an exchange because of a transaction backlog, by the time you manage to sell your coins, he said they may not be worth anything. He actually says it the other way around. He says, at least if you move your money into Bitcoin Cash, at least they'll be worth something in a crash situation. Now he says all this in the context of there being a mass exodus of people from Bitcoin to Bitcoin Cash. And when he says if, quote, if in quotes, he may well be saying such things to trigger the very hypothetical exodus that he's talking about here. Now, while he may well be exaggerating to push the Bitcoin Cash agenda, it did make me think about you guys who tune into the Cryptoverse for tips on like making money in crypto and then actually protecting that money. Roger may get in your head a little bit if you watch this, because one of the things we love about Bitcoin as an investment is that it is fully liquid, meaning no matter how much of it you have or how long you've held it for, you can always sell it all in one go without affecting the price because it's so liquid. The question is whether we can still consider Bitcoin a fully liquid asset if it takes days to move it from a private wallet to an exchange. This is kind of the point that Roger was making, right? So I did a quick experiment and I proposed a transaction to send all of my Bitcoin from my Ledger Nano S SegWit address to an exchange, and the fee was quoted at $92. If Roger's panic scenario materialized, I personally would have no problem paying that kind of a transaction fee to get it included in the next block. Although I already know what his counter-argument to that would be. He would say something like, what if the mining power has moved over to Bitcoin Cash by that time, and then the next block on the Bitcoin network takes more than an hour or several hours or days? Well, my response to that would be, that's a lot of ifs. You know, I've learned a lot from Stefan Molyneux, who's the author of the book, The Art of the Argument. And he often cites what he calls an argument from consequence. And he says such a basis for an argument is invalid. In Roger's case, his argument from consequence kind of goes like this. You should move your money into Bitcoin Cash, because if people don't move their money into Bitcoin Cash, they won't be able to move it if the Bitcoin price crashes. The problem with that advice is that if enough people move their money from Bitcoin to Bitcoin Cash, that will actually cause the Bitcoin price to crash. And then the Bitcoin Cash price would rise and the mining power would move over to Bitcoin Cash, making Bitcoin more difficult to move. So it's kind of a cause and effect thing going on there. So in that way, he's speaking it into being true rather than it being true right now. Yes, there's a Bitcoin transaction backlog, but if I paid the $92 fee at this moment in time, I would still be able to get it into the exchange in the next block, right? Part of my job is to reduce the anxiety of you, my dear viewers, and replace that with as much confidence as possible. So if you watch this interview with Roger Ver and he gets into your head and he frightens you, then there is a hedging strategy that you can employ. Right? My approach, more often than not, is not to say what Roger's saying is true or false. I more often than not will use what the Buddha called the middle way, which many of you regular viewers may have heard me talk about before. So like I said, this means I'm not going to help you figure out whether what Roger is saying is true or false, whether it's likely to happen or not likely to happen. I'm going to suggest a strategy that means it doesn't matter which way it goes. You have some protection in place either way. So my strategy, within the context of what Roger is saying, would be to transfer half of my Bitcoin holdings to an exchange and leave the other half in my hardware wallet. That way, if there was a sudden crash in the price and a drop in mining power on Bitcoin, yes, the Bitcoin in my hardware wallet would be stuck, but I'd instantly be able to sell the Bitcoin that I'd put on the exchange. That limits my losses, while at the same time limiting my risk of holding money on an exchange. Now, I'm not recommending anyone actually do this. This is just a philosophical thought experiment for the purposes of intellectual stimulation, as always. One thing I will advise you to do is somehow come to terms with the fact that none of us can gain absolute certainty that we won't lose money in this game. Nor can we gain absolute certainty about security. Right, that is a quest you will never complete. Instead, we must do everything within our power to lower the risks to an absolute minimum, and then, whatever risk remains, fully accept it. And that means if you've still got any anxiety or nerves or fear, that means you still haven't fully accepted the remaining risk, or you haven't reduced it enough. So that's my final piece of advice for today. So thanks very much for joining me today, guys. If you liked this episode, go ahead and hit that like button. And if you're new around here, get subscribed. And if you would like access to my very best material, such as my structured online courses that will teach you things like how to make and save money with Bitcoin, check out my website, which is cryptoversity.com. Click on the courses section, and you can see a range of online courses from beginner to advanced that will help you on your cryptocurrency journey. Alright guys, that is all for today. I'll be back tomorrow with another episode of the Cryptoverse. So until then, it's me, Chris Coney, saying bye for now.